Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the July Shimmerz Paints Color Kitz collection. For this layout, I started out with this half a sheet, or a little bit more than half a sheet, of pattern paper. I used some of it on the other layouts that I made this month, and I just really liked the color of this paper, and I knew that I could use it along with some of my leftover fruit slices that I love so much that I fussy cut from one of the other pattern papers in the kit. But if you've been following me, you may know that when I don't have a lot of a certain piece of pattern paper that I want to use as a mat, I will sometimes cut out a piece of cardstock, cut to the correct size that I want, and then I'll use strips of paper around the edge. And in order to make it look a little bit more finished, I will cut the corners of two of the papers on angles, kind of like a frame. And then I can mount my picture on top of it, and then I don't have to worry that I don't have a lot of this paper left. You can see to the right of my mat, that's the rest of that green paper that I have left. I use the rest of that on another layout as well. So one way to make 45-degree angles is to fold the corner down and then cut along the fold line. I tried to do the first strip without doing that, and I did not cut the angles correctly. So then I use the folding technique on the second piece of paper and then use that second piece of paper as a template to recut the first piece of paper. I hope that that makes sense. So now I'm using some Distress Oxide. This color is Crushed Olive, and I inked the angles on the little strips of paper and also around the outside of my mat with the Distress Oxide. Now I am mounting a piece of paper on top of that little frame, and I'm going to use that for my photo. I had an idea of what photo that I wanted to use. However, I didn't have it handy. I had to print it out, so I decided that I would just leave that there. I knew that it was a 4x6 inch photo, and so I'm going to get to that as the very last piece on this layout. Right now, I wanted to start working on the embellishments. So I'd fussy cut out this huge lemon from one of the pattern papers, and I really wanted to use that on a layout, so this is the one. And then I had some fruit slices left over, as I said. I fussy cut out one of the pattern papers. There was an entire pattern paper of all these different fruit slices, and I really love them. So I'm clustering them all around my photo. And then I wanted to also create some other areas on the layout that had some embellishments. So I have a small cluster on the upper right-hand corner, and then I have my title cluster in the lower right-hand corner. The title, which is Way Too Hot, is from the ephemera pack, and so is that little lime slice that I'm cutting the white edge off of. Because I have all the other fruit slices with no white edge, I decided that I would cut that off so it would match with all the other slices. Because the title is white and my background where I'm going to place the title is white, I was thinking that it would look better if it was matted on a piece of pattern paper, and I got really lucky. I had just enough of this green paper to mat my title on. And then I added another piece of cardstock behind the title. I think originally I was going to pop the title up on some foam, but then I'm not sure if I forgot or decided against it, but I didn't end up doing that. So I really didn't need to add that extra cardstock, but it didn't hurt. But my plan is to make a mixed media background. I'm going to keep it kind of simple, but I did want to add some Shimmerz paints to the background. The piece of white paper that you see is a piece of 120-pound smooth white cardstock, and I've already coated it with some Liquitex gesso. So I'm going to add the mixed media, but I don't want to add the mixed media to areas where I have embellishments. So what I'm doing is I am adding all of the embellishments to the layout. When I have to attach them down to the pattern paper, I just go ahead and do that. But when they overlap the white part of the layout, I'm attaching them down to either the photo mat or the title. And that way I can just lift everything up when I'm ready to do the mixed media, which for this particular layout, I end up doing toward the end. So there were a lot of pattern papers that could be fussy cut in the July kit. I personally love fussy cutting shapes from pattern papers. I love the way that gives you so many elements to work with on layouts. So I also fussy cut out some flowers. There were some yellow flowers with a white border. I'm adding those to the layout now, and I love the way those were all different sizes. So you could see I used all the different sizes, a couple on each cluster on this layout. And then I also fussy cut out a different sheet of little flowers. There were yellow ones and white ones, and I think peach ones, but for this layout, I'm just going to use the little white flowers. And you'll see in a few minutes that even those little white flowers, they're not all the same. Some of them are a little bit smaller and a little bit bigger, and they have different shapes, and I think that all those different things add some interest to the layout. So I'm also including this sun at the top of the page. That's from the die cut pack. I thought that matched in with everything else pretty well. I also wanted to pop up my photo on a little bit of foam. So I am using whatever foam I have left in my drawer. I have some more foam available, but I figured I could probably make this foam stretch a little bit and be able to just use what I had left. So you can see I'm using a whole bunch of different scraps. And I am going to go ahead and attach this photo mat down to the layout. I'm only going to attach down the top part. Unfortunately, I made a little mistake. I put the adhesive on the wrong end of this mat, so I had to go back and add some to the top and then remove the adhesive from the bottom. But you can see how easily you can get the ATG adhesive off of the foam, so that's why it's important to go back in with wet glue. Sorry if you watch my videos all the time, I say that on every one, but I don't want anyone to watch my videos thinking, oh, I could just use some ATG adhesive on foam, and then later on it comes apart, because I have found that it will definitely come apart later on. So you definitely want to go back in and add some glue if you hold it in place temporarily with the ATG adhesive. So now I'm adding those little tiny white flowers, and I love the way they have kind of a dark orange center. I feel like that just makes them go along so well with the other elements on the page. And I didn't even cut out all of the flowers that were on this pattern paper. There was an entire sheet of all these different little flowers. So I'm using up what I have, but there are plenty more left on the rest of that sheet if I wanted to add more to the layout. And because I'm going to add mixed media on the bottom, I'm not putting any of those little flowers on the white background, but I am going to add just a couple to the background later on when I'm all done with the mixed media. So I was looking at the title, Way Too Hot, and I was thinking that kind of describes the weather right now. I live in New York, and it is pretty toasty here, and I understand it's similar in nearby states. But hot or not, I shouldn't complain, because July is my favorite month of the year, and I'm very sad that it's drawing to a close. I just always feel happy when it's July. It's just always been my favorite month, and I do like the summer more than I like the winter. I'm not really good with the cold, so I just tend to savor every day of July. So I attached down those white flowers to the background, and now I'm going to add some mixed media. So I used a pencil and I drew lines to show approximately where I wanted to put the mixed media. I'm going to put it along the edge of the line at the top, where I have the large cluster, and then I'm going to put some mixed media all around the outline of the title. I'm using the packaging technique to spread the color around. And for this layout, I'm using a small piece of bubble wrap. I like to use small pieces of plastic. I find them a little easier to control. The paint that I'm using is a Shimmerz, and it's called Sunny. It's a perfect match for the colors in this collection, and it comes with the color kit if you get the kit that has the paints. And now is a good time to mention that if you use my name in the comments when you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, you'll receive a free gift. I generally forget to say that until the end of the video, but if you're placing an order with Shimmerz, you might as well get a free gift with your order. After I spread the color around, and then I trialed my big cluster on top of the background just to make sure that I liked the way it was coming out. I wanted to add some splatter to the background, so I added splatters using a Coloringz called No Yolking. And that's a similar color to the Sunny, but I often like to use two different shades, at least two different shades of the same color. I think it just gives a little bit more depth to the mixed media background. And sometimes I'll start out with the mixed media. I think usually I start out with the mixed media, and sometimes I'll do it at the end like this. And this is actually my favorite way to add the mixed media to the background. I feel like I know exactly where I want to put it, but it doesn't always work out this way. So I had a feeling as I was adding the paint to the background that I wanted to add some modeling paste and I wanted it to be dots. So I found that I had two different choices. The other one was a Felicity Jane stencil, and that one was great too, but the dots were a little bit smaller and they weren't irregular, and I kind of like the way this Vicki Boutin stencil has a little bit of irregularity to the dots, and so I decided to use this one. And when I say irregularity, I mean the dots are different sizes and slightly different shapes, and they're not in a straight line. They're kind of randomized, and so that was just the look that I was going for on this layout. So as usual, I go back in with a second round of mixed media. I usually like to add lots and lots of splatters, and I felt that this layout could use a few more splatters. I am concentrating them along the line of color. That's where I like to put most of them, but splatters have a mind of their own, so I just try to accept where they go. And if I make a big mistake, if there's a big splatter in a spot that I don't want it, I'll just go back in with some gesso and dull down that color once it dries. Now the mixed media background is dry, and I am ready to put my pattern paper and all the embellishments onto the mixed media background. When I added the pattern paper onto the mixed media background, I was thinking that the edge of the pattern paper would look better if it was a little bit more crinkled and distressed, and I wanted it to go up a little bit on the right and on the left as well, so I curled the paper up a little bit on the right-hand side. And then I attached down the title cluster and then a couple more flowers on the bottom part by the mixed media. And usually I'm moving the embellishments all around the layout. On this particular layout, I didn't really move too much around, just that one little flower a little bit more to the center of the page by the sun. Now I'm using some enamel dots that I've had in my stash for a very, very long time. These are Queen & Company, and I have a whole bunch of them. I think I got them inexpensively many, many years ago at a store called AC Moore that is long gone. And so they were just the right color and just the right size, so I was happy to use those up. So I used the Queen & Company orange dots on all the little white flowers. For the yellow flowers, I used two different types of jewels. For the larger ones, I used some faceted jewels that I had in my stash. I'm not sure of the manufacturer of those. And then for the smaller flowers, and the medium flowers, I guess, I used some dewdrops. Those are made by Want to Scrap. I love the dewdrops. They are translucent and they just are super pretty. And then I also thought that it might be nice to have a few lime green jewels scattered around the page, not too many. For those, I use a Queen & Company product called Twinkle Goosebumps. And I've had those in my stash for a very long time too. It feels good to use up some older product along with the new. So I was thinking that on the left-hand side of my photo cluster, I needed a little bit of green, so I added a little slice of lime over there. And now this is the photo that I'm going to be using. This is of my daughter Julia. It was her birthday, and she wanted to go to a Mexican restaurant called Sangria's. And she doesn't look it here, but she's well over 21 and she's having a frosty drink there. And I just love her face, and I thought that kind of made it go with the title. So I love to add photo corners to my layouts, and I found a little scrap of paper that was yellow, and then I couldn't find it anywhere. I lost it. It was a scrap from one of the pattern papers and it was just the right shade of yellow, of course, but I couldn't find it and I still haven't found it. I don't know what I did with that. So I found another scrap of paper. I was able to get 2 photo corners out of that one, but I think 2 photo corners were enough. And I added a couple of those really tiny dewdrops to the photo corners. And then I was thinking that it might be nice to ink the edges of that really large lemon. I used some fossilized amber distress oxide, and that is the last touch. And here are some close-ups of the layout. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed watching. I had a lot of fun working with this July kit, and now I'm looking forward to trying out the August one as well. In the description box are links to the July Color Kitz collection, and then also if you're interested in getting a subscription to the Color Kitz collection, that link is in the description box as well. Thank you once again so much for watching this video. Please feel free to leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.